Hello and welcome to the Law Deals podcast, where we discuss law firm succession plans, profitable law partnerships, and law firm purchases and sales. I'm your host, Ed Alexander. I've practiced transactional business law for 30 years, have my own practice, Alexander Business Law, and am a principal with Fitzgibbon Alexander, a business intermediary firm. We're on a mission to make sales of law firms commonplace so you can enjoy your practice and your life. All right. In today's episode, we're talking to Jordan Ostroff, an attorney here in Orlando. Jordan, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey, everybody. My name is Jordan Ostroff. I run Driven Law Florida, a personal injury firm right here in Orlando. And then I also coach other lawyers on how to get out of the day-to-days of their business and into more of a CEO type role.
Excellent. Excellent. So I want to dig deep into your firm and your coaching practice. But before we do that, I really think that the listeners would benefit from understanding your pathway and what you learned along the way. So let's dig deep into the firm first and kind of your education and all of that.
Sure. So I knew that I wanted to be a lawyer since I was like 5 years old. Had no idea what that meant. And sometimes I still don't know what it means to be a lawyer. But like there's home videos of me just like, I want to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to be a lawyer. At some point I realized kind of it's arguing with people and convincing them you're right, which is also on all these home videos. I'm sorry, Mom. I love you. I came up to Orlando to go to UCF. I stayed here to go to Barry for law school. I stayed here as a prosecutor. And then on October 5th, of 2015, I took the wonderful journey into owning my own business with, at that point, Jordan Law, now Driven Law.
Excellent. Excellent. So let's just take a step back on the state attorney's office. So what did you like there? What worked for you? And then why did you make that move?
Sure. Listen, I loved my time as a state attorney. I think I was Lawson Lamar's last hire. So the vast majority of my time was under now Judge Jeff Ashton, who was the prosecutor on the Casey Anthony case. And look, I have had a lot of great bosses. Jeff was probably the best. He truly tried to put us, like me, in a position to do as great of a job as I can on my cases. And so I got a ton of great experience. I had a ton of control. I was able to, drop the case if I thought the person was innocent, prosecute it, with full support of the office if I thought they were guilty and there was something that we really needed to do here. And then the next promotion for me would have been to sex crime. So at that point, I was doing the general felony position. So like armed burglaries, some like reckless deaths, trafficking, serious stuff like that. The next stage up that was sex crimes. I applied for it and they told me I didn't get it. And I was weirdly happy. But then they told me I would get the next one and I was weirdly sad. And that made me realize subconsciously I did not want the promotion. I had a lot of friends in that area and just talking to them about the emotional stress of those cases, I realized that wasn't what I wanted. And so I knew my days were numbered. And then I figured out how to, honor my 3-year commitment to the state attorney's office, but also talk to a bunch of defense attorneys. One of them offered me office space and some cases he wasn't going to want to take. And so put in, I want to say it was like 6-8 weeks notice to give them plenty of time and then made the jump.
Excellent. So at the time you made the jump, did you just hang out a shingle or did you enter it in some other fashion?
Yeah. So look, the other benefit of being a prosecutor. So I had cases against all of the defense attorneys. And so when I knew my days were numbered, I sat down with probably 20, 30 criminal defense attorneys in town and asked them questions. A lot of them were former prosecutors. What's it like making the switch? What do you need, et cetera. And so basically, most of them told me, look, there aren't any really large criminal defense firms in town, in the state, in, the area. Everybody basically has themselves, or maybe they've got one other lawyer. Corey Cohen, I don't know if you know him, he's an attorney in town, has now a very large criminal defense firm. He had an extra office, offered me the office, offered to throw me some extra cases that he didn't want, offered me some use of his staff in exchange for, cut on some stuff and rent and whatnot from there. And it was just too good of an opportunity to say no. And thank you, Corey. Seriously, it was great.
So basically, the benefit of the state attorney's office is massive amounts of practice in terms of being in court, right? But the other side benefit there is that you had an incredible network of people. Now, the attorneys that you knew were primarily within one vertical, but nonetheless, it's a fantastic network to come out of the state attorney's office with. It's interesting because it kind of parallels how I got into it, right? The firm that I was working for went out of business, and I happened upon a guy who knew somebody that I knew. And he said, hey, we got some office space here. Why don't you take over this office space? I ended up, I think it was $300 a month. It was a pittance, and he threw me all the cases he didn't want, which some of them were good. Some of them were really terrible, but hey, that's getting out there and making it happen. So that's wonderful. So you go into the office. Tell me about your practice at that point, and then how you actually acquired a firm.
So I was prosecutor, like I said. My wife was a PD. We actually met in court on opposite sides. And so both of us, all of the experience in criminal defense. So when we first launched, we're like, oh, let's try family law because, like you said, everybody we knew was in criminal. We could get some other cases. Didn't like family law for so many reasons. I take my hat off to everybody who does family law. You have way more emotional stability than I have. But had the opportunity like 8 months later to buy a traffic ticket firm. As a prosecutor, I love the DUI cases. I got a chance to get my butt kicked by so many great defense attorneys in town on it. I learned a ton about it. And so we thought like, a traffic ticket business would lead to more DUIs because technically that's a ticket, even though it's a criminal ticket. More of the traffic stuff, we really loved like helping people get their license back. That's often the biggest thing you can do to help somebody in Florida is allow them to drive legally. And just thought this would be a great opportunity for us to add in that revenue stream from a firm that I think had been around for 5 or 6 years. At the time, I was 8 months into having my firm. And so I really thought this was going to be a great opportunity.
So you're proceeding along with your family law practice. Are you taking criminal defense cases too? So it's both?
Oh, yeah. So totally. It was just like there were some defense attorneys that would send us family law cases. I knew a lot of people from UCF or Barry that would send us the criminal stuff. And so we thought, that would help us build the base. And it did. We had a pretty good flow of cases, just being nice people, doing a good job, caring about the clients. And thought like, all right, we'll buy this firm. We'll get a book of business. You know better than me all the stories. Like if the firm's around for X number of years, it has a much better percentage of staying in business and former clients calling and the phone number and all those things. So I thought I was jumping myself into the fast lane.
So at that point, it was just you and your wife, and you're both practicing. Do you have a staff? Tell me about the configuration of the firm.
It's a really good question. I think at that point, I had a law student working for me for like $10 an hour who actually came back to us as a lawyer after he graduated school for a while. I don't think I had any other staff then because when we bought the firm, we kept one of their staff members. And then we started adding lawyers after that. I think it would have been like within several weeks. So it may have been just before, it may have been just after.
So you're doing a bunch of work yourself. Both of you are really trying to make everything happen. And how did this traffic firm opportunity come to you?
Same way as everything else. I think the first time I met one of the guys who owned it, he came in as a guest speaker at law school. He had been there, 7-10 years before me, and was actually talking about breathalyzer stuff and how he did that in Seminole County. He had whipped my butt a couple times as a defense attorney when I was a prosecutor in Orange County. And then now this became an opportunity for the traffic ticket stuff.
And so you said, hey, this is a great thing. Let me pick this up. Give us an idea about they're asking some number. And did you negotiate? Did you just say, sure, whatever? Give us an idea of how that worked, the negotiation.
Yeah. So they hired an attorney to represent them who actually unfortunately just passed away like at the end of last year. Super nice guy. He and I stayed in touch for 7-8 years and still in touch with the guys who sold the firm. I came to the table by myself. I looked at numbers thinking I had any semblance of what was going on. I back of the napkin my way into, a negotiation that was based upon nothing. And they took it and was nice enough that it ended up being a financially great decision. Long term, I just wish I had known so much more at the beginning because I could have done a much better job, maybe with the negotiation, certainly with the transition, certainly with incorporating it into my firm. You don't know what you don't know until you have to learn it. And then so I threw myself into that situation.
So exactly the reason that we're talking to you today is we want to know those things that you discovered that you wish you would have known. So give us a couple of those and tell me the story of how it came to be.
Sure. Look, at the beginning, I wish I had somebody like Ed who could come in and negotiate. They had a lawyer who was negotiating for them. I am a lawyer, but was, too dumb at that time. So since then, I've hired a lawyer for everything that is not exactly specifically what I do from this lesson. So that was first. And also, to be fair, I had enough money to put down to start paying them monthly after that. I don't even know that I had enough money to hire the right lawyer to represent me on the purchase. And so maybe that would have been red flag number one is investigating that part and somebody telling me don't do it at this point. But then, like, as we got into the transition, they had 10,000 prior clients between traffic tickets. I had nothing in place to mass market to those clients, and not a MailChimp account, not a constant contact, nothing. Like, even if I had just had the marketing sense at day one that I developed over the next several years, like, I probably could have tripled the casework that we got from it, just staying top of mind with those clients, staying in front of them. Like, I took on a lot of the ticket firms' marketing strategies, but that was so much in like initial lead stuff. That was, sending out the mailers and going through that stuff. And they connected me with their graphic design person and the company that did the mailings and all those. But I didn't have anything on the back end to really capitalize on those clients. And so I really wish I knew that.
So I'm going to stop you there just because I really want to delve into that, because that is such an important topic, right? I mean, the value in acquiring a firm is so much in the prior client relationships, right? And so in this case, you would have had to transition those over. Were they already in electronic form, or did you have to actually key them in and do all of that?
No, thank God. So they were like, we are totally out of traffic tickets. Like, we want to sign a non-compete on traffic tickets. We cannot handle them. They just wanted to carve out, like, we can take DUIs because, again, it's technically a ticket. But like, the amount of times I got messages from like David or Robert that were just like, hey, I got to tell my neighbor I can't handle their, cousin's ticket. Like, they have to call you. Like, here's the expect this info, was so funny. And so like, I took over their entire Outlook, had the login, had all the contact info. God bless them. I think some of the stuff's still on my cell phone, and they had like every ticket for the person filtered in there, the county, the judge, the what it was. They had really good records, which makes it even stupider that I couldn't take the really good records and do anything with them on, day 1 or day 30 or day 90. It wasn't until, probably 2 years later that I finally had anything in place to capitalize on, 10,000 prior clients because they had the info.
I mean, this is such an important point. I really want to stress this, right? Because when you acquire a firm, the firm is ultimately paying for itself, right? So there should be profits that come out of a firm, and those profits would pay the seller. So for a buyer, though, the real benefit is leveraging the assets that are there so that you can turn them around and expand that firm. Now, the beautiful add-on for you would have been, I know you didn't want to do family law, but the add-on would have been marketing the family law side of things simultaneously with the traffic ticket, right? So that now you're leveraging those assets into a practice area that they didn't have and that you can make a bunch of money on. Now, you probably were completely overwhelmed with all the work if you had that many traffic tickets going on. The other interesting part that you mentioned there is they already had a really good marketing plan. So apparently, and you explained this to me, this is not an area of practice that I normally get involved in, right? But when there's a ticket, you can do a direct mail piece, right? And knock wood, I haven't gotten any tickets lately, so I don't know that process. But at the end of the day, they marketed through direct mail pieces to people who got tickets, and that was their entry point into bringing people into the firm, right? Then, so you took that part over and just kept it going exactly the way it was.
For the most part, like, obviously we changed the names, and so we had to get it reapproved by the Florida Bar, and then we updated some of the images later. But ultimately, yes, like, they had a whole system, and I think we may have changed the counties. So basically, like, you buy the data from somebody, and then you have a printing company that prints and mails it. And so I think we may have changed like what counties we were going for. I think they had a lot more of a presence in Lake County, and we weren't there. I think we got rid of that one and increased the mailing in Orange and Osceola, stuff like that. But ultimately, yes, I mean, they had this system in place that we were able to keep running.
Right. So keep the marketing system. So the marketing system has value for the firm, right? And then the database of clients, although you didn't utilize it, has certainly had value for the firm. I guess from some standpoint, they didn't utilize that value themselves. So that was untapped resource that you could have really exploited, right?
Yeah, I can definitively tell you that the traffic ticket side didn't do anything about it. I don't know if their criminal defense firm that they kept had the crossover of the data or anything like that. I have no clue, but I certainly did not have anything in place to MailChimp. And like, literally, when I did move, I think I started with MailChimp. It may have been Constant Contact. Genuinely, I think it was 15 minutes to upload 10,000 people into it, and 100 $20 a month to be able to send emails to all of them. I'm so mad at myself that wasn't a day one thing or day 30 thing or whatever, just because it was so easy to do it once I thought to do it.
So as a buyer or speaking to somebody who would be a prospective buyer, you'd basically advise them to go out, figure out what the assets are there that you can utilize. And if the seller wasn't utilizing them in the way they should be, go out and utilize those assets. And frankly, I think the number one asset is that customer list, right? Or client list, so that there's a know, like, and trust there, and you can utilize that know, like, and trust. But there's one thing that you mentioned there very quickly I want to go back over. You changed the name of the firm.
Not initially. We changed the logo.
Okay, gotcha. And the reason you changed the logo was?
It was dated and it looked like every other traffic ticket logo. And so we went with a little bit more digital, Uber type look, more of a refresh. Really, one of the lawyers I had at the time, his roommate saw our logo and basically laughed at us and was like, hold on. And in 15 minutes whipped up this mock that I like so much better. He likes so much better. And we thought that as a lot of this became more tech heavy, it fit the feel a lot better. And we're sold, done, great. And so made that swap. So I always go back to I don't know how much anybody cares. I know, you've changed the firm name because the wording meant different things to people. For us to go from Jordan Law to Driven Law, I don't think it mattered. For us to go from the old Tix Team logo to that new logo before we closed down the whole Tix Team side, I don't know that anybody cared, but I thought it was better. I approved it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting point, right? Because, and I've talked about this in prior episodes, in my view of the world, there are three types of law firms. There's a process firm, there's a relationship firm, and there's a brain surgery firm, right? So brain surgery firms do bet the farm type work. Relationship firms are, your typical commercial litigation, transactional business law, where there's a relationship there. You want to make sure that the person's competent, and it's important work, but it's not bet the farm work. And then there are process firms, which for the most part, those firms are get the matter in, do the matter in the most efficient manner possible and for a reasonable fee, because there's a lot of competition, and it's less dependent on who the lawyer is and on what the actual process is inside the firm. So what's the workflow that you have going on? And so in this case, ticket firms are usually process firms. Would you say that was the case here?
I'm sure there was one client who asked for Robert, who was the lawyer that we bought from, but maybe it was one, maybe it was two people, over hundreds of cases. So definitely. And to my, I don't want to say credit, to my luck, I was buying a firm that was that situation because Robert did not stay on, although he and I still grabbed lunch. He took every phone call. He filled me in on the specifics of certain clients when there was a headache or a situation arose. And then we kept the staff member, Maria, at the time. So there was a very consistent flow of the same person answered the phone. They were emailing with the same person. And so we were able to, I think, overcome any one of those issues. But I was not smart enough to think about the different levels. I was lucky enough to happen to buy one that was that easier transition level.
And that transition is so important that the lawyer be available, right? I mean, it's rare, although I've heard of one or two instances where the lawyer sells and then the next day they're off on their around the world cruise or something like that. The reality is that this is a relationship business. It's a degree of what that relationship is, right?
Totally. And I think Robert took a week-long cruise, but answered a phone call if I called him in that week. So,
So going back to the lessons learned, so we've gone over a few lessons here. What other lessons would you add to the mix?
So, yes, I bought a firm technically, but really I bought an MBA. Before that, it was my wife and I and a $10 an hour staff member. Maybe we had one lawyer who made an offer. I don't know if it was contingent upon this sale going through, whatever it was. We didn't have a business. We had a collection of jobs that made sense together. But taking on, the cost of this firm, taking on their staff, taking on the prior clients, taking on the already existing ones, forced me to actually learn how to run a real business. As the firm that we were before, I was ultimately responsible for every case. And now it was okay, well, I need to have, my wife's going to take on these cases. This lawyer's going to take on these cases, So we need a case management system. We need a written down SOP. We need these processes to know that we're all on the same page. And so ultimately, that's what I bought. I bought the situation that forced me to learn how business really works.
So usually that comes through pain, right? So initially there's some pain as I can't do this anymore, and then the systems start happening, right? And so is that the case with you? And really, what did you start out with first?
Yes, so much pain. So much pain. And look, thank God we kept the staff member, Maria. Thank God Robert took all my calls. That resolved a lot of my stuff. It was the first time that I had to think like, oh, did this happen on this case? I did it, or I told my law student intern to do it, and it was like on small projects. But now like there's 15 cases hiring you in one day. There's 60 in some weeks. There's a lot of this stuff. It's really hard. And to your credit, what you said before about, the price point for $75 a ticket, for $100 a ticket, it's really hard to jump in and be like, okay, was the notice filed in every case? Was this filed? Did this go out? What's going to happen? Did we assign it? Is it calendar? It required so many more of these things that like could have been a 15-minute conversation with my wife beforehand when we had 20 cases that now had to be like a specific system, either truly written down, built out into, Practice Panther or Clio or something like that, like some way to know all these things. And thank God, knock on wood, like the pain was not bar complaints. It was not client issues. The pain was just working 80 hours a week to handle the stuff, to put anything in place, to make sure there weren't bar complaints and there weren't client issues and there wasn't a problem with stuff.
And I don't know if you did this, but when you're working 80 hours a week and you look back and you go, hey, what is my hourly rate? Number one, it's not sustainable, right? But then you look at your hourly rate and you're like, oh, wait a second, what's going on? Especially when you've got high volume, low dollar amount cases that ultimately can't exist for too long. Okay, so you've got the firm, you've put in systems into the firm. At what point do you decide this isn't really what we want?
So I'm going to roundaboutly answer your question. My kid was born on March 2nd of 2018. So sometime in like the middle of 2017, my wife told me she was pregnant. And I wish I remember the exact day because like that was my moment. Thank God we have been trying for a year. Thank God I was super happy. Probably buying this firm in April of 2016 and it taking a year for her to get pregnant are probably related things. But like within 10 seconds of being happy, I went right back to how the hell are we going to do this? Like we're working 80 hours a week. We're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. We are miserable. We're drowning in a lake of fire and now someone's going to hand us a baby. And so like, that's what really forced us to sit down and think through what was going to make sense. And so the beginning of that was cutting every ounce of our marketing budget. Like I cut $130,000 a year marketing budget on January 1st of 2018. My kid was born on March 2nd. I was like, at the very least, I'll have more time to spend with him. And then like that financial breathing room, those fewer number of cases allowed us to spend a little bit more time, raising my kid, but also to figure out what made sense, to figure out what we wanted our firm to look like, which ended up not being the high volume traffic ticket stuff and not the family law. And then eventually not even the criminal stuff, because now we're a PI firm, but it's been like this constant iteration.
So the marketing budget that you were spending, what was the effect when you cut the marketing budget?
That's a great question, Ed. So I don't know the numbers off the top of my head specifically from all of 2017 to all of 2018, but I will tell you that for all of 2018, my firm made $5,000 less. And I wish I could tell you 515 versus 520, whatever it was, $5,000 less, saving $130,000 on marketing, which is not to say that the marketing was that bad, was to say that we were able to organically grow to make up for so much of it by having the MailChimp stuff, by, reinvesting in our clients, by doing, more for them that wasn't that traditional mailers, buying ads, pay-per-click stuff, buying leads from Nolo, buying DUI leads from DUI.com, everything else that I was spending money on. I'm very thankful that I finally had that moment of a deep breath to actually think more intentionally about the firm that I wanted.
So much to unpack there, right? So the first thing that I think is really important is that the success rate of dealing with prior clients is so much higher than going out to new clients, right? So the benefit there is we have the existing relationship. They already know, like, and trust us. And so when we stay in front of them, we stay top of mind. And at the same time, we're able to activate them to become referral sources, right? Most people don't remember who their lawyer was for whatever event they had in their life, and they won't remember you unless you continue to communicate with them, and communicate with them in a way that delivers value to them, not in a way that is selling them all the time. They don't want to hear that.
Or I won this award. Look at what we did. These are our recent results.
Me.
Yeah, value to them.
Right. So what is the important thing that's going on in their life? What's in it for them, not what's in it for you? And nobody cares about you, right? They care about themselves. And so that's who you need to talk to, is what's the benefit for them. So you're going out and you're doing that, and you have this, epiphany, right? Forced by outside events, you have this epiphany that says, this isn't what we want. And that epiphany led you to basically take a breath, stop for a few minutes, and figure out, how will this firm serve our lives? You came to the conclusion that it didn't serve it now. What conclusion did you end up reaching as to where you needed to be to have that firm serve your life?
All right. So this is trigger warning. The story sucks, but it bookends the other thing. So a year to get pregnant with our kid. He just turned 6. He's great. Fast forward a year and a half. We are trying for a second kid. My wife gets pregnant. My wife has a miscarriage, and things that had happened on, I think it was a Wednesday. We have court scheduled for the following day. So I think it was a Thursday. And I was like, hey, I'll go to court. Like, no problem. She's like, no, I'm going to go to court. It's a 5-minute hearing. I'll go to the OBGYN afterwards. Like, this will take my mind off of it for a couple hours. We'll get checked out, make sure everything's okay. Proceeds to have this judge just completely lose it on my wife. Like, where's Jordan? You're unprepared, whatever. Threatens my bar card. So I get called in the afternoon, and flat out, the judge was like, how can you tell me that you're ready for trial on this case when you don't even know if your wife is going to be medically fit for it? And I have pulled the video. Thank God. My response was like, well, Judge, she's at the hospital right now. I can't be with her because I'm in court with you, but I will update your JA as soon as we know if that's going to be the case. Like, with that tone, to this day, I have no clue how I did not lose my mind in that situation. You know, we had the breath in 2018. This was like the middle of 2019. I was like, what's the point of doing all of this if in the moment when I should get grace from the judge who's not currently on the bench, but has kids who handled this situation this way, like, what's the point? And so we looked at, like, how can we help these people that have been run over by society while also still getting coverage from judges when the situation arises, while also still having the opportunity to spend time with our kid. We traveled across the country for 13 months while not having to shake my clients down for money. So that's like what burned up the PI switch. We had been doing some of it at that point, but we're like, hey, we can help the same clients. I can hand them a check instead of complaining to a judge that, like, I will let them know if my wife needs to have emergency surgery during her miscarriage. And, like, you can set this trial for Monday and we'll let you know if we're going to be here. It was just eye-opening opportunity. And opportunity is the nicest word I can put on it.
Yeah. Wow. Just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the good news is you clearly heard that opportunity, right? And sometimes it takes that really emotional response to be able to follow through with it. So you were completely driven by that, which is great. So now that I use the word, let's talk about your firm.
So this is great. We are recording this on March 29th. So we rebranded on April 1st of 2023 because my entire life I have always wanted to announce a real pregnancy on April 1st, but my kid was born on March 2nd. So we never had that opportunity. So, like, April 1st has always been my day to try and, like, do something fun. So I've got a book coming out this April 1st. We did the rebranding last April 1st, but my wife had this idea for years beforehand. Like, she was a teacher for a year when I first opened the firm. So one of us had consistent income. So, like, she always loved the concept of, like, driven students. As we moved into PI, you are driving on the road, and, like, it really fit this ethos, these core values, this belief that we have in how to handle cases. And so it's been awesome. I love it. And again, I don't know that any client cares, but I love it. I think it's great and it makes me happy.
That's great. So let's do a deep dive. How many people do you have in the firm? What does it look like? I know you've got a really great schedule, so I want to understand how you've been able to accomplish that. Tell us about it.
Sure. So underlying current of that story in 2019, as we were going through this transition from the firm side, I was partnering up with somebody to end up launching a marketing company for lawyers because I was like, hey, how did I have the $5,000 difference? Like, how am I this bad for this stuff? And so I launched a marketing company called Legalese Marketing. I've been bought out. They changed the name, but that was in January 1st of 2020. We were able to build a ton of this foundational stuff for me as the first test case, roll it out to local attorneys, roll it out to nationwide attorneys. And then we were able to take a lot of that stuff into the rebranding of Driven Law. And so like that really helped from that standpoint. So to answer your question now, law firm wise, my wife is a managing partner. She's got some of counsels and other attorneys that we'll work with on certain cases, depending upon like if there's a seatbelt issue, if it's a more serious case. She's got a paralegal and legal assistant. We've got a receptionist. We've got a marketing person who's in-house for the firm. And then when I got bought out of the marketing company, I kept what was a 3-person marketing team that's now a 5-person marketing team that markets only for Driven Law and me personally, and like a little bit of personal stuff for my wife. So what is that? That's 10 people split across those two things.
So your marketing efforts there, what is your team focused on? Are you back to advertising or are you primarily doing, something different?
So this is great. I mean, this will take the conversation full circle. In keeping with the concept of like referrals are great and prior clients are great, that's the majority of our focus. We do a ton of networking with other lawyers, with doctors, with pain management providers, with imaging people. And it's awesome. The governor will tell you differently. I think it's awesome because my clients get preferential treatment. Like if they need to get in to see a doctor that same day, I can get them in to see somebody that same day. And then we do a ton for former clients. We are constantly reaching out to them just to check in. Who else can we send you to? What else do you need? We do 2 parties a year, so we invite clients to that. We've got some smaller events that we invite clients back to really try and help them. Again, like the ideal client for us in car accident situations, like a realtor, a teacher, a PTA involved parent. So the opportunity to have a family friendly, fun covered night with free parking and free drinks and free food is great. The opportunity to take the family of 4 to go see a kids movie in July covered by the firm is great for them. Like really things that I think matter to them, that I've seen matter to them. And then from a digital side, we're a lot more focused on social media than traditional ads, because we can target our social media to potential clients, to current and former clients, to referral sources, to other lawyers from a brand building standpoint. And my team and I love the content creation stuff. Like we genuinely enjoy funny ways to answer the real questions that people have that they may not want to ask an attorney, or hopefully letting everybody know about coverage. Please, dear God, have coverage. Do not expect the other person to be able to help you financially for your accident. Please, please, please protect yourself. And really just trying to sing that message in as many, if we have to dance on TikTok to get 5 people to buy coverage, I will do it because it will help them when they need it more so than our current insurance system.
So the assets from the ticket firm are still benefiting you today, because I'm imagining you still have those in your database and you're still going out and reactivating them through communication, right? So essentially most of it ends up being, human related marketing, looking for referrals from clients, past clients, and other attorneys, right? And so what are you doing on that side to stay in touch? You've got the social media ads, but are you doing newsletters? Are you doing, you mentioned the parties and that kind of thing. How are you announcing them? Tell us more.
Yeah, I mean, so now we use Lawmatics. I wish I had a financial investment in Lawmatics. I think it's the best program for law firms. I think it's the best CRM, I think, regardless of your industry. It's slightly below Salesforce, but for 1/10 the aggravation. And so that will let clients automatically book follow-up calls and check-ins. It will let us blast them information at scale for newsletters. So invites to the party. It will let us know who opened it. So we can have a list of our 50 favorite clients. Mm-hmm. And then for the 15 of them that didn't open the email, we know a week later to call them and make sure they saw it and pass the information, things like that. So we have a lot of stuff in place to do those things. And then we always think about it from how can we help the community? So in January, we reach out to all of our clients and referral sources. We buy a bunch of Girl Scout cookies, 10, 20 boxes across whatever it is, 10 different Girl Scouts. And then in February, we turn around and drop a bunch off at different referral sources. So now like they get to see this, we get to help, some clients' family get, I don't even know what the incentive is for selling Girl Scout cookies, a trip. When I was a kid, like we sold magazines and got chocolate bars. It's got to be better than that now. So that, the movie theater stuff, it's great. And we can highlight some of the smaller chain movie theaters and whatnot along those lines. If we're dropping off, gifts to a different office or trying to meet a new office, we'll try to find like a local bakery that's close to them and, build that relationship. And, when people rave about the cookies from, I forgot the place, it's over by Waterford that we've used, we'll swing by, every 2 or 3 weeks, once a month and grab stuff and, drop it off to different offices over there. Really trying to be committed to our community.
So all referral-based marketing without the need to have a constant face-to-face. You can do a one-to-many face-to-face. You're in touch with them on a regular and consistent basis. You track the referral sources. So you're able to then go to talk to them, mostly because your avatar client, whatever those characteristics are, they're hanging around with other people who are probably your avatar client as well. You're leveraging that, and you're making sure that the ones that are really your ideal clients are contact perhaps more frequently, but certainly if they're not opening things, that you're making sure to reach out and giving them some special attention to do that. That's fantastic. So let's talk about right now. I know you work 3 days a week and you get to be a dad pretty much every afternoon, if I understand correctly. So tell me, how did you make that happen?
Yeah. So a lot of that came out of him being born and us cutting back on stuff. And so like we did not put him in daycare. So we were, committed to, I want to say, so now I work Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. I feel like those were my days normally. I feel like maybe it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I had him on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then my parents would come in on, Wednesdays and Saturdays to help out for, the middle of the day. And then he was not in daycare until actually after COVID started, which was a whole nother conversation about us. Like, do we put our kid in daycare because he wasn't talking at 2 years old? And now he won't shut up. Don't worry. He's the smartest lawyer in the house at 6 years old. So it worked out, all things for that. As we transitioned through those things, I never really went back to work. I stayed with him, and then he went to daycare for a little bit, and I probably picked up an extra day or two. Then we did the cross-country road trip, and so that really forced me back actually to 2 days a week. So I would work 2 days a week. My wife would work 2 days a week. We basically would drive the other 2 days and then have, 1 day a week to sit and relax and have fun and check out the city as a family. So by the time we got back from that and he started school, I was still working 2 days for, 13 months coming out of that. And I was like, I need one more day. I'm bored. There's only so much like calling all your friends and then being like, dude, we have jobs. It's Wednesday at 2:00. We can't go do whatever. I picked up the coaching stuff, and I think I can help a lot of lawyers create their version of my story, hopefully avoiding the first 3 or 4 years and really enjoying like the last 5. So
tell us about your coaching practice.
So I help firm owners get out of the day-to-day and into more of that CEO type role. So we do a time audit. We look at like, what's the stuff that you're doing that could be done by somebody with way less skill and for way less pay. The amount of firm owners that are billing $400 an hour, but still checking their own email because they don't want to hire somebody for $15 an hour to do administrative tasks. To me, I'm like, you're costing yourself $385 an hour every time you do this. And so putting them in that mindset, then we help them, build the systems, hire lawyers, take them out of the day-to-day. I always like talking with Ed because at the end of my coaching, even if they're not going to sell, it should be easier for them to sell. There should be situations where the firm is not solely reliant upon this lawyer to do the whole job. They've got the systems written down. They've got other lawyers handling the stuff. They've got automation and processes and whatnot. And then, what do they do with the extra time? Do you start a weight loss plan? Do you go play golf with referral sources? Do you sit on the couch and watch Netflix? I don't care. There's so many studies that will tell you show up better in everything when you have a whole life. When you have that time to step away, you are more creative on the work. You are more patient with the clients and the employees, and you make better decisions. So it's amazing to me how a lot of people think that we're being selfish, but then you look at the science that says you're actually being the best boss by not being burned out and overworked And the impact is crazy to see for, I've got like a dozen clients across the country. So it's not anything huge, but it's cool to see the impact.
That's two things that absolutely drive me nuts is when people think they can multitask, which we can't. It's impossible to do that as humans. And then the other is this idea that I can be as productive in my 60th hour in the week as I was in my second hour of the week. It just doesn't work that way, right? It's just a constant drain on your productivity because frankly, you need your problem solving skills. That is absolutely what people pay you for, right? These complex situations, and you just can't do it in your 60th hour the way you could in your second hour. So that's great. So wonderful. You also mentioned a book.
Yes.
Tell us about the book.
So Love Your Law Firm, a roadmap to the law firm you've always wanted, comes out on April 1st. Not an April Fool's joke, I swear. I am so excited to get this book out. The problem with writing a book like this is I never died. As I wrote things, new things happened. And so it was like, this is the journey. This is where this is this. And then I could never catch up to that moment. And so finally I committed to an end date, even though I'm still, doing things and learning and whatnot. And so I'm hoping that this book will help a lot more lawyers avoid the burnout, avoid the depression, avoid the suicide rates, and just please for $20, or it's going to be on sale for the first week. If I can help one lawyer avoid all of the crap that I went through for 3 years, not knowing what I was doing, I will be very happy.
I'm really looking forward to it. I can't wait to read it when it comes out. So I encourage everybody to go. Is it available on Amazon?
It'll be available on Amazon on Monday, April 1st.
Okay. Love Your Law Firm on Amazon. Go there. Okay. If somebody wants to contact you, Jordan, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure. So I'm Jordan at jordanostroff.com. Lawyer with a Life on Instagram, Jordan Ostroff on LinkedIn and Facebook. There's actually 2 Jordan Ostroffs. I thought I was the only one for so long, but I am one of 2. So I should be relatively easy to find and always happy to chat. I'm thankful to so many people that gave me so much advice and a shoulder to cry on and a kick in the ass in certain moments that I'm really happy to help as many of my colleagues as possible avoid my many mistakes.
Well, and thank you for helping our listeners too. When we talked, I just loved your story. It's really a perfect outcome, right? And to watch you go through that process, I guess not watch, but really listen to how you went through that process really was the perfect process from a standpoint of somebody who really had to learn in the trenches. And so anything you can do to advance that is really worthwhile. So I encourage everybody to talk to Jordan and get a little bit more depth on his story, and maybe he can give you some pointers on your practice. So thank you very much, Jordan.
Ed, thank you so much for having me.